Murdock, and I'm our moderator. And we have to my right Tony Fadell, who I'm going to introduce to you in just a moment. But to give you an idea of the format, I'm going to spend a few minutes introducing Tony, and then Tony's going to give us 15 minutes on sort of his background and what he was doing. And then we're going to come back into a conversation, he and I. And then we'll hopefully have enough time for a little Q&A at the end of the event. Before I get there, if you look at Tony, I don't know, how many of you have iPods or iPhones? Ah, okay, so you already know him because you know Tony's children. Tony, besides making consumer products for over 20 years, he is known as the pod father, the father of the iPod, hired into Apple to build the thing and create the thing, and he did. And he was responsible for the first 18 generations of the iPod, including the first iPhone and the first 3 iPhones, actually. He led that team, and which, of course, every iPhone has an iPod built into it. And maybe the first iPhone was the best iPod ever, right? Steve Jobs said that. So he worked for Steve Jobs for a long time. Then he married Steve Jobs' VP of Human Resources, and they started a family and retired. And 2010, something happened. He got maybe bored or something, but decided to come back and solve a problem that he thought needed to be solved in the world. And
I was driving my wife crazy.
Yeah, maybe. But I think the real truth is, as nice as this guy looks, he's a subversive, complete revolutionary. I mean, how many of you used to have Walkman, by the way? Sony Walkman. Well, he killed it. So, now you know what happened to the Walkman. He wants to change the world in lots of ways. So we'll hear about what his values are, what his philosophy is, and how he came to be this revolutionary that we have on stage today. So without further ado, Tony.
Jerry, thank you very much. Thank you. Walter, great to see you. Well, there's so many great faces here in the audience, so many I know and so many I will know. I love being here at the Aspen Ideas Festival. This is my 3rd year now, and it's always inspiring me to hear the talks. And I was really, really taken aback by the number of sessions all about space. I couldn't believe how many things were about space. I geek out on space. I love space, right? But I can't believe all these people trying to move our next generations off the planet. It's really, really wonderful for a geek like me. But today, what I'm really here to talk about is really my journey. My journey, it's grounded in the home. It's about a different space, home space. And we're going to talk about a little bit about how I came from being the iPod guy to being a CEO of a thermostat company and how that began. It began really early in my career, not just my career, but my childhood. And it was because of this man. Hello. This man. This is my grandfather, John Tishuk. His friends called him the General. You can see him with his fist. I knew him as Gramps. He was a passionate educator. He was a father of 3. My mother was the oldest. He would be educating kids every day in schools, but what was passionate for him was really, it was all about giving back to the community. He was a builder. He loved to build things, not just educate kids, but teach kids how to live their lives by doing. How do you do that? He would find troubled youth on his nights and on his weekends, and he would bring them in under his wing, and he would educate them and give them self-worth and reliance through teaching them trade skills while still having his day job. I learned about this. I thought I knew him all my life, but I learned about this when I gave his eulogy about 10 years ago. What happened was, in a magical moment, it was very emotional for me. People came up to me I never knew. I never knew anything about these people. And they told me stories of my grandfather, about how they were the troubled youth and how he had found them and taught them those skills, and how, in many ways, he saved some of them from jail. That was something that stuck with me like I wouldn't believe, and it reminded me of many, many instances with my grandfather of when he was teaching us. I was a young kid. I was only 4 or 5 years old with my brother. My grandfather wanted to mentor us, just like he mentored those other youths. He would take us under his wing on nights and weekends, put power tools in our hands, put electricity in our hands, my grandmother and my mother watching on in horror, absolute horror. And he took us through project after project after project, whether it was fixing a sink or building a soapbox racer or building a doghouse. He took us and educated us through doing. It was powerful. And whatever the project, though, there are three main things that he always taught us. The first thing is, whatever the problem was, look at it, break it down into its components, rebuild it, think about new ways and bringing new things in and making it better than it was. That was the first thing. The second thing he taught us was, if you're going to do it right. And the third thing was, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to take on tough challenges you've never saw before. Why? Because humans, people just like us, built these things. And if they built those things, you can do so too. Just rely on yourself, rely on your skills, break down the problem, and bring it all back together to make it better than it was. That was my grandfather. It was those skills that he taught me and served me well in my first decade. And I see Mark Peratt back there hey Mark, from General Magic. He was my first employer when I went to Silicon Valley back in 1991. And those skills that my grandfather taught me, beep, hello, gave me the ability to get a special phone call, a very special phone call, to create this. What's this? It looks like a simple foam and paper model.
You were skiing when you got that phone call.
I was skiing. I was skiing in Colorado.
Wow.
I was skiing in Vail. I got this right as I went on the chairlift. I got the call to design this simple model, weighted with my grandfather's fishing tackle. It was put in the hands of Steve Jobs. After 8 weeks of research, 8 weeks of design, it doesn't look like much. It wasn't designed. Everything on the inside was designed. It wasn't designed on the outside yet. It became this. 6, 7 months later, we shipped it to the world. Apple was a tremendous company. It taught me so much. My grandfather taught me so much, but what Apple really taught me was about experience. When people see the iPod, they think, iPod, yes, it was amazing, amazing success. But the iPod would have never been the iPod if it wasn't about the experience. And what that experience was, it started with a program called iTunes. The iPod would have never happened if it wasn't for iTunes. iTunes was about gathering and organizing your music and experiencing it in a new way you've never seen before. It was incredibly successful. But what it needed to do was you needed to take it with you. You just didn't want to burn CDs anymore, make mixtapes. You wanted to be able to have 1,000 songs in your pocket. That was the inspiration for the iPod. Those two things came together, and it was a great success, an amazing success. We could have stopped there. We could have done no more and still done a really great job. But we decided there was more. Why should people be buying physical CDs? People were also stealing music at the time. We had this magical thing called the internet. Digital music should be delivered digitally, and it should be paid for. And that's when the next, this is not working.
There you go.
All right, and that's when iTunes Music Store was born. And through that continual assault on just creating the absolute best experience, iTunes, into the iPod, into the iTunes Music Store, that's when the real magic happened around the world, and the Apple that you know today was created through a set of teams, a set of people creating what you know as the iPod. That was an incredible journey. That journey was rewarding. It actually started the iPod, and as Jerry mentioned, it turned into the iPhone. It was great. It was wonderful. At the same time, my wife and I, both who had worked for Steve, decided we're going to set out on a new journey. And that journey, come on, want something? Were our kids. These are my sons, Case and Logan, our sons, my wife and I. Today, they're 5 and 6 years old. When we first had our children, Steve sat us down, talked to us all about raising kids, talking about how are you going to do it? What do they mean to you? What did they mean to him? And through that, I was inspired by him, and I thought back to the days of my grandfather. I thought back and I said, what did he teach me? How am I going to teach these kids? How are they going to do things differently? So what do? I sit down every weekend, many nights. I wish it was today. I wish they were here with me, learning about how things are made in the world, building things together, really understanding, touring factories, just understanding how the world works. So they're not scared. They are empowered to understand how the world works and that they can do it too. And that was great. But there was one further thing. It was when I saw them, I knew about them and their grandkids and their friends. I needed to leave the world in a better place. Not just music, not just communications, but I thought about energy. I was retired. It was great. I was driving myself nuts, driving my wife nuts. I needed to do something. So I wanted to combine all of those things. So that's where it led me on a journey to building a house. So I went through and took all of those lessons, designed for the complete experience, design and rebuild things, think about things in a new way, and help the environment. So I set out and learned how to build houses, more than my grandfather taught me, how to build next generation houses. I wanted to build the greenest, most connected home on the planet that I knew of. So I went through and I researched everything. I researched the solar systems, geothermal systems, insulation, windows, all kinds of different aspects of the home. And through that, I learned many, many things. I learned about great technology, and we applied it to the home. But there was one thing that I just couldn't shake. Couldn't shake at all, because I knew about home energy consumption. And that was this, the thermostat. The thermostat, something we all overlook, something we all ignore, something that's incredibly important. At least I think so. 10% of the US energy consumption comes from heating and cooling, residential heating and cooling. Your thermostat control, and everybody's, 250 million, a quarter billion thermostats, control 10% of the US energy consumption. They're overlooked, they're unloved, they're ugly, no one knows how they work. You fight over them, right? You fight physically, each other. I want it cold, I want it hot. But at the end of the day, you're a victim to these things.
Yeah.
Less than 10% of those quarter billion thermostats are ever programmed to save any energy. Why? Because they are unloved. They are complicated. They remind you of 80s VCRs. Yes? We know this problem? Yes? Yes? So I decided to take the things I learned from my grandfather, learned from Apple, and said there had to be a better way. So we deconstructed all of it. I took a blank sheet of paper, and what it became was a smartphone. There's a smartphone inside of this. It's what it takes to make this. That's why these haven't changed in decades. Because it actually takes the power of it and the technology of smartphones and the internet connectivity to give you the kind of benefits that we see in our product today. What are the problems? One, why do we have to program these things? Your life's changed. Why don't the products adapt to your changing life? You're not at home. Why can't the products turn themselves down when you're not there? We have busy lives. We can't always be adjusting these things. Before Nest, people would touch these products. They were never programmed, so they touched them between 1,200 and 1,500 times a year. Just up, down, up, down. It's ludicrous when we think about it, right? It's absolutely ludicrous. So we decided there had to be a better way. And that's the Nest. And Nest, how many of you know about Nest? Okay, well, I'm already, okay, I'm going to make this fast then. So Nest turns itself down when you're not home. It will adjust. You don't have to program it. It'll adjust the temperature to what you've done previously. Over a span of 3-4 days after you've self-installed it, you can also have a professional install, it will learn and adapt to your changing environment. And as you change it, it continually learns. So you don't have to program anymore. You can if you want, but it will do it for you. That, to us, was really a big stretch. Today, Nests in homes, over 90%, 95% of them are learning and have schedules in them through learning, not through programming. So we went from 10% programmed thermostats, 90% unprogrammed, to now 90 to 95% programmed through learning to save energy, and the other 5% are actually physically programmed. People program exactly what they want. To us, a tremendous change. But the other big one really for us was about the design. People are engaging with this. They're seeing it, and they're seeing there can be a better way. There's different people who like different things about the product. Energy savings. They like remote control, but a lot of people also love the design. You curate what's in your home. You worry about what's on your walls, on your furniture in your home. They also care about the look of the thermostat.
Are you trying to create a relationship between me, the owner of the house, and the house?
Absolutely. This is the actual face. We've made it designed like an electron. We want you to think about energy. When you have an ignored, unloved product on the wall, you look at this in a new light and say, what is this? What can I learn from it? What can it teach me? Because you're engaged with it.
And it reaches out and talks to you, too, when you walk by it, right?
It reaches out and talks to you, too.
What does it say?
It doesn't say anything. It just lights up and says, I'm there. And then when you walk past it, it goes away. And you walk up to it, and it says, hi, I'm here.
That's magic.
It's magic. But just like the iPod, we didn't want to just stop there. We knew that the thermostat was great, and we thought that it was a crazy idea. Lunatic. My wife thought it was nuts. But after you explain the problem, people are like, yeah, this is great. And the engineers we were able to get, iPod engineers and iPhone engineers, they wanted a mission. They wanted to do something different, something more than music and social. They wanted to do something about the next generation. So we got this great team together. But we took the thermostat and we said we wanted to go beyond the thermostat.
There we go.
And so we wanted to make sure you could control it from anywhere. So we made clients for your handset, iOS, Android, for your computer even. So you can control it from anywhere. That's neat. But what it really was about was not just about that. It was about allowing you to see your history, how much energy you used, why you used it, who changed the temperature. Was it your wife? Was it your kids? Who was changing the temperature? Why is it doing what it's doing? Because it's not a magic box that just does things randomly.
Does that reduce fighting or increase fighting? What you know?
It increases the conversation about what we're going to do about it.
Right, okay.
Because before, you could just do this, and then you could walk away, and no one knew.
Right.
Now there's evidence.
Right. Bill Cosby once told me, he said, you're not really a parent with only one child. You need 2 children or more, because the big job being a parent is to figure out who did it.
Exactly.
So, right? And now you're going to figure out who did it.
And we actually have a feature, we call it Inside, Who Done It.
Okay.
Who Done It. That's how we name it. That's inside the company. Who Done It. And sometimes it's not just you or your spouse or your kids. Sometimes the weather done it. Okay. It could be the weather. It could be different things. So we make sure we give an energy report that says, this month you might have saved energy. Who done it? And it'll tell you exactly why.
That's great.
These are things to help to educate you. More than just behavioral, go in and change the temperature and make sure you turn it down and not be comfortable. It's about educating and learning to adapt your life over time so you're comfortable and you're saving. It's not about living in a cave.
How much can I save? If it's 10% of the United States, but how much can I save in my house?
Let me get to that.
Yeah.
All right, next. So we did that. But we went even further. So this just four months ago, we announced a new service. We decided we were going to connect all the way to the utilities. We have a full feedback system from the person to the device and the heating and cooling, all the way to your energy consumption with your utility. There are $10 billion a year spent on energy incentives for you to save energy and to peak load shift. $10 billion. How many of you know anything about this? How many of you gotten any of this money? Any of you? A few, very few. Our job is actually to unlock that $10 billion and give it back. So if you actually are using your Nest properly, you'll get rewarded for it. Think about that. You're going to save money, and you're going to earn money if you do things right. That's what we think. That's a great economic incentive to once you're saving, you can earn more. So these are the things that we're doing. We're thinking beyond just the product, just like we did with the iPod, to the entire experience. So beautiful talk about all these features. Does it really work? Well, in just the 20 months we've been on the market, 20 months, we were supply constrained for 8 of those months. Demand was overwhelming. We have saved 800 million kilowatt hours with just our users alone. 800 million. What does that mean? What's 800 million? That's, if we were to shut down the US of all energy consumption for 15 minutes, all energy consumption, that's how much 800 million kilowatt hours are. 15 minutes. And we just got started. So we can't wait to see what else is there. And that was really great to save energy. But if you're saving energy, do people like it? Are they living in caves? Are they turning it down? Do we have all just crunchies using these devices? Right? Well, come on. We're seeing through our social media, through tweets, through social posts, and from what customers are telling us, they're saving money and they're more comfortable. They're starting conversations. They're liking what they see. They're telling their friends, go out, get one of these. You've got to try it. It's a thermostat, yeah, but it will really be different in your home. And so this is wonderful to see. And the data keeps coming in, and the data keeps coming in. We see all this great stuff. But this was the next piece of data that I had no idea until the team showed me. We only sell Nest in 2 countries. We only ship in 2 countries today. That is Canada and the USA. We are so lucky to have people around the world coming to the US and to Canada, buying the Nests, and now putting them into 80 other countries around the world where we don't sell. It reminds me a lot of the experience we had with iPod and iPhone, when people couldn't get that device they really wanted, that they thought was going to change their life in some dramatic way. They went over and above and beyond to obtain that product. So this is really heartwarming, and it shows us we have a lot more things we need to do at the company. And I can't wait to talk to those potential customers in those 80 other and 100 other countries. So that's wonderful. It's been amazing. It's been an amazing journey. One that's been really great. It's great business. It's a great thing. We're saving energy and everything else. But what's really amazing to me, and what brings me back to my grandfather and how he helped those troubled kids or helped those other people who were not part of his family, was that we are changing the conversation in the home. We're seeing photos of this where parents and kids are installing them. We have 8-year-olds who post videos on YouTube of them installing a Nest and using it. To me, we're changing the conversation in the home around energy and changing the next generations to actually understand what energy is and how they can actually adapt and change the world themselves. Thanks.
So tell me, how does a revolutionary recruit people to their cause? How did you build this team at Nest? Because obviously you had a few folks that helped you out.
Oh, we have a lot of folks today. Our initial team was about 40 to 50 people. And literally because I had been in the Valley for, at this point, about 20 years, something like that, I was able to we've all worked together. We were all friends, whether it was at General Magic or Philips or Apple. And I would just call them and I would say, hey, you want to come and join this team? It's a crazy idea, right? So one was just trust. And they joined the iPod team the same way because we couldn't tell anybody what we were doing. Just come on and join us. We're going to do something cool. Yeah. And so that was the one thing. And then when we told them, under NDA, of course, what we were doing, they saw the mission. And they said, wow, we can use all of our skill sets that we've used for years and be able to then reapply them to a new space. We're not going to compete with our friends at other companies here in Silicon Valley. We're going to do something so different and rewarding, because they were doing, after 18 generations of the iPod, right? Okay, the 19th one, how much different is it?
But if you're building iPods, that's got to be cooler than thermostats.
It is cool, but when you see kids and you see families doing this, one thing that Steve taught me really well is if you put emotion in the product, just don't make it rational. If you put emotion in it and really touch people, no matter what product it is, and you tell them and you're committed and you're behind it and you show that you're behind it and you're passionate about it, they'll feel it and they're gonna respond.
Yeah.
And there's gonna be those people, those early adopters, I'm gonna try this thing. And so, and that's also with engineers. So it's not just about music, and it's just not about fun and games. There are things. And look, at the end of the day, you're spending, for a typical home, $1,200 to $1,500 a year on energy, right, on heating and cooling in a 1,200, 1,500 square foot home.
Yeah.
If you could save 20, 30% of that, right, you would instantly. So there's a rational argument as well. So people can actually buy a different pair of shoes every year and their nest paid for them, right? You know, it's something that sits on your wall for a decade or 15 years.
What do your customers say about it?
Well, we have different customers in different segments, right? We have greens.
Yeah.
We have fashion greens. We have practical people who just want to save money. We have other people who are, tech geeks like me who just want fun, fancy things. So across the board, each person has, and then we have design-oriented people who just want something that's beautiful. So through each of those segments, we're able to touch them with a message that really works. And through that, like I showed, they come through their whatever angle, their point of view, they wanted the device. And then they see the either rational or the emotional benefits. And it just continues to build momentum for us. So we're really pleased by seeing, our communities online and our Facebook likes and all this stuff just growing like crazy, which I would have never expected that we're so far this soon in the company.
Yeah. But the Nest, is there a philosophy around giving control to the customer and to be able to say, hey, look, this is your home. You have to pay this amount of money every month to keep it heated or cooled. We're going to give you control. How do people react when they have control? Is it hard because they've never had it before?
Well, there's two different types of customers. There's ones who passionately believe they're doing everything they possibly can to save energy. I can control it better than any computer.
Right.
But then there's the 90, 95% people who, like you said, didn't control it at all. We wanted to make sure for them we came from the comfort angle first.
Right.
It's about comfort. A lot of the programs that you see through government programs or whatever else, it's like, take it from, in the summer, you like it at 65. You got to be at 78. You're going to go right there. No. It's about, very simply, getting people to start where they are comfortable, and then over time moving them slowly to new thresholds of energy savings through behavioral adjustments, through data, through all kinds of different things, through incentives. And so you have to start with that set of customers from the comfort angle and move forward. Now, what we're seeing around the world as we start to learn more about, like in England and others, very, very different way people use heating and cooling in different parts of the world. And we have to adapt, our algorithms have to adapt the way we talk about the product in other ways, because in the US, at the end of the day, for most people, it's all about comfort.
Tell me some of the features in Thermostat that gives you this data that you're talking about. What are some of the things that happen? Like, how do you cool things in a different way, and how does it learn? How does the thermostat actually learn?
Okay, so there are a lot of stuff there. So I'll start really basically. So we have 7 sensors inside the thermostat. 7? I think maybe it's 5. I can't let me count. So we have 3 temperature sensors, a humidity sensor, a light sensor, 2 activity sensors. We also have the ring. Through all of those sensors, we learn about what you like through your temperature preferences, through the activity in your home. And when I say we, I mean the device learns.
Right.
Because it's all the smarts are right there on the device. You don't have to be Wi-Fi connected for it to work. So we learn about all these things, and if you are Wi-Fi connected, we even blend in the weather. So we can understand when it's sunny outside and you're turning it up, but when it's cloudy, we might actually turn it down a little, right? And so those kinds of things. So there are different areas where we have some absolute genius people in our company working on our algorithms. They've made, they were head of the Google X project at Google, and they've made robotic arms and prosthesis and doing all kinds of algorithms to begin to build patterns. And what we've seen is there's really 5 different patterns of homes out there. There are roommates, there are seniors with just living alone. There are dinks, dual income, no kids. We see with young kids, families with young kids, and families with older kids. And through those 5 different things, we have algorithms that actually over the period of a week, we choose those algorithms for your home, all behind the scenes to tailor what we're doing for your type of living arrangement.
So does my Nest actually get smarter over time?
Absolutely. The more data you put into it, we make it smarter. through the algorithms we know that maybe only on Mondays you're at home. Mondays you're at home because you have an odd work cycle. So Monday will be treated very differently than Tuesday through maybe Saturday, because maybe that's your work week. So those are the kind of things we can take into account. So yeah, there's all kinds of different ways we learn and adapt.
And so what do you do with the data?
What do we do with the data?
And I'm not used to getting that kind of data at home. So what do I do with it?
So
do I get it? Do you give it to me?
So the data, if you're connected, well, first, the data is stored on the device itself. So, and if you have multiple devices, the data is stored across all of them, and they all work together. So if you have multiple thermostats in your home, they all work together in concert. Today, most thermostats, they don't even know the other one exists. So one's cooling and one's heating. So we have the data on the devices themselves. And you can actually see the data of what you're heating and cooling per day right on the device. But we can give much more rich data if we upload it to the cloud and then put it in our remote clients, where you can see exactly when your heating and cooling was turning on, who changed it, why it changed. Like I said, the whodunits.
Right.
Like, was it the weather or was it a person? So all of that data is accessible through our remote clients. And then we also create a energy history report, which is literally a month, it's free. Every month you get compared to various people in your neighborhood or in your climate zone. You can see how you're doing against them. You can see how you're doing against yourself month to month. And you can see why your energy usage has changed. So you can see if it was your adjustments or the weather, or maybe you weren't at home as much, or maybe the number of days is shorter for the month,
right.
For how you're saving energy. So all of these things all come together in that report through that data.
So if this is a revolution, it's probably not just one device doing one thing, right? What is it going on inside the company? What are you and your revolutionary team trying to create out there? Because you're doing something. It's not just about saving energy. It's got to be something about the way people are interacting with their home. There's some values that you must have that you're trying to express through these products.
We're very aware that at some point, and after our history, our decade history at Apple, that these things lead into other products over time, and where could this go? And so we are very aware of this, and we wanted to make sure that we set up our company and our naming and all those other things. We didn't call ourselves the Thermostat Company. We called ourselves Nest, because we believe in something called the conscious home. And we want to bring the conscious home to reality. It's not the smart home, it's not the geeky home, it's not the one-button home, it's the conscious home. We think that these products still need to be in the background, taking care of you instead of you taking care of them. Always running around and pushing the buttons. We want them to tell you more about what you're doing and watching over you and trying to, inform you, so that you're living hopefully a better, more conscious life. So that's kind of the mantra of the company inside.
Is this sort of a ambient intelligence that exists in the thermostat that I eventually learn from it as well?
Absolutely.
Am I going to learn from having one of these in my home?
Well, I think through the energy report, we see people adapt and change. But we also have something called the green leaf. It's right there on the dial. And what happens is that green leaf shows up whenever you're choosing an energy temperature that is actually more efficient than what you've chosen in the past. So maybe typically you like it 72 degrees in your house in the winter or in the summer. That green leaf will show up just a little bit, maybe 1 degree, 1.5 degrees outside of that. It's kind of like a bonus. Search for the leaf, to get people to nudge out of their comfort zone. Go right to that leaf. So it's behavioral change in a way. It's kind of like a little game. And you go, and we have kids saying, "Mommy, it's not on leaf. Why isn't it on the leaf?" Search for the leaf.
Right.
Look for the leaf. That's the kind of thing that you can do right on the interface of the device and try to tend people towards a more energy conservation behavior.
So are there more things coming? Should we expect more than just a thermostat?
We have a large team. We went from, just 3 years, we just went from, a very small team, and now we're up to 250 people. We're growing out to 350 people. We are dead set on bringing the conscious home to reality. And so expect a lot more from us. Can't say anything more right now, but expect more. Actually, I got to get back to work tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock and get right there and get back to the management team and push.
Right. And we're going to go to Q&A, so if you've got some questions, just hold on just a second. I'm going to go one more question, and we'll go to Q&A. We have about 10 minutes left. Tell me, if you could leave the impression in all of our minds, one thing about the Nest revolution, describe it. What is the Nest revolution about?
Well, personally for me, it's about an absolute ludicrous idea. It's a crazy idea. It's like, what? A thermostat? And now we can get people talking about it. For me, there are so many other products like that you ignore, that are unloved, that are ugly. What can we do with those? And I think, to me, that's the story. And that's the story of Nest. And the story of my grandfather. Look at something, reinvent, change it, make it, use the latest technology, and do it right the first time. I think there are so many more things like that that can be done.
So if I go home, find all my ugly devices that I don't really think about, I can realize those guys are on the endangered species list. Is that right?
Very much so.
Okay.
Very much.
That's great. Okay, well, let's go to Q&A. Sir, first row.
My impression is that this is primarily an aftermarket consumer product. My impression is this is primarily an aftermarket consumer product. That is, if you own a home and you decide you want the product, you put it in. Have you made any inroads with institutional home builders or apartment developers?
Absolutely. We have 4, 5 different home builders who actually make it standard or as an option in their new homes. So we're working with home builders. We have a full installer community. We have 12,000 different installers who actually buy the product directly from us and go and install it in new homes. So all of these things are about the experience. So we make sure that we're trying to not just do retrofits, but also new construction, remodels. And a lot of people, they don't go to, our products are available at the Apple Store. Go figure. There were no strings pulled, trust me, on getting that thing in the Apple Store. But consumers do want that. But 70% of thermostats are actually purchased by an installer. And so we're talking to that community. And we now have real street cred being around for 20 months with the builders, with the installers. And now they're starting to recommend it to their customers. So we're seeing a next wave of growth through them, which is really nice.
Kitty?
So let's talk about the fact that, I'm sorry I was a little bit late, so you may have said this already, but it seems like this device is actually going to engage all of us in thinking about our own ability to control climate change. Because we're reducing emissions. If you're leaving your house for a week and you're going somewhere else and you can control your thermostat from somewhere else completely and you're always in control of your energy use at home, and you're going to cut it down, we're going to save tons of energy.
Tons of energy.
Which means we're going to have huge impacts on emissions. Will you talk about that a little bit? Because I don't know if that's entered your marketing.
Absolutely. I can tell you this. I'll tell you all this. We are soon going to be adding CO2 emissions reductions into our calculations. So you're going to actually see how much CO2 you're saving. So when you're out of the box right now and you put a Nest on the wall, we've already done our studies. Literally within a month, it's carbon, the building of the device and putting it on your wall, it's carbon neutral within a month for the energy savings for the device itself. And then it just pays itself back after that in carbon emissions. So there's more to come on that, but we're going to actually be informing our customers through our energy reports and through our UI about those emission savings. So stay tuned.
That's great. You, sir, far right.
So Tony, in honor of this presentation, I just turned up the heat in my house to just about 87 in Palo Alto. So I'll be getting a call very soon as to what the hell I'm doing with the system. But it works great. Love it at home.
Thanks for being a customer.
Can you talk a little bit about that disruption aspect of this? And you obviously did this with the iPod. Now you have companies like Honeywell and so on, the so-called installed companies that do this and have been doing a variety of different thermostats and so on. Why is it that they continuously are not able to pivot, and this whole Internet of Things and connecting it to the web and so on? Actually, I'll ask, what advice would you give to them instead of the other way around?
So when we were doing our first recruiting, we were like, well, we need to go get home energy experts, probably from the field that we were going after. And we looked and we looked and we looked. And what we found was basically for, I guess, operational expenses reasons, most of the engineers had been removed. They just kept making the same things over and over. They wanted to streamline things. They're like, oh, there's no change here. So they didn't have the actual requisite talent to innovate beyond where they were today. The other thing is they didn't also have the new skills. There's only a few companies in the world who know how to make smartphones, right? That skill set needed to be applied to this problem. And also all the network connectivity and services and all those other things. All of those things had to come together with disruptive marketing. Remember, we're talking about product here, and I talked about the product experience. You got to talk about disruptive marketing. Before, no one has ever really marketed a thermostat to you, except maybe on a shelf at Home Depot. There was never anything. We have ads in the Atlantic, big, full-page, back-cover ads. You have to be disruptive, not just in the product, with disruptive technology, the latest technology, and have the right resources, but disruptive marketing. Those are the three major things you have to be able to pull these kinds of things off. And that's why it was done with something like the iPod, and then again with the iPhone and those things. Because it's not about taking a thermostat and making it more beautiful or putting a color screen on it. It's about taking this world that we already have of internet-connected smartphones and adding a little bit about heating and cooling to them, and algorithms and data on the other side to adjust those things. That's the difference. It takes this kind of company with these little expertises added onto them, as opposed to the other way around.
Yeah. So is that why after 20 months of launch, you guys are the #2 thermostat company in the world in terms of volume of sales?
In the U.S.
U.S.
By revenue.
Really? Wow. That's fantastic. You in the teal shirt.
If I have a completely irregular schedule, coming home at different times, leaving for 2 or 3 days at a time, and a house with 4 or 5 thermostats, the question would be, how does it learn? And secondly, from my app, can I control all rooms at one time?
Okay. Yes, you can control all 5 through the interface, no problem. They all just pop up. If you have a very irregular schedule, sometimes to me that'll either say a vacation home, or it will say, just very erratic patterns. In those 2 cases, we tell you to use auto away and just set the temperature you like once. And when you're away, it goes down to the lower temperature. There's no real program that it has. It just has one temperature when you're there, and when you're gone, it goes to another temperature. Very, very simple. Or you can actually program it all yourself, just like an old one, but it's not like the old style program. You can just graphically put this here, there, cut and paste, and create your own custom schedule for your life if we can't do that. We see in 2% to 3% of the Nests installed, they're what you describe, which is really these erratic schedules. We see another 5 to 7% being second homes, and they use that other way of learning. And we educate people on that through our website of what to do in those cases. So we've made sure we design for those other types of lifestyles.
Great. Jeff?
So I'm an architect, and I have homeowners asking me all the time, okay, who's going to win the war on the wall? Who's going to tell which interface is going to tell what systems how to work? And it's really embarrassing at parties when the homeowner sits there and they have their control interfaces, and they're trying to do lighting and mechanical and everything.
Everything through one interface
software,
box.
Right. So this is interesting. Let's assume you're the smartest guy in the house now. And I think about lighting generates a lot of heat, which asks your system to do more cooling. So your system could clearly monitor something like that as well. So I know Jerry kind of asked this, but I'm really intrigued as someone who would be specifying your product and trying to convince a homeowner Nest is the way to go. It is conceivable that you being the smartest guy in the block and that trust of the kind of products that you've done, that you could start having a more robust interface telling the lighting what to do, for instance, and saving energy all the way around the house, right?
Absolutely, and that's part of the conscious home I alluded to earlier. It's about, over time, connecting all those other things. Remember, heating and cooling is still 50 to 70% of your home energy bill, right? It's the biggest chunk. Everything after that, pools, pool heaters, hot water heaters, those are the next big chunk. After that, it's really, really, even lighting is a small piece. So you want to hit for energy conservation, you want to hit the biggest chunks first. In fact, it's more important than putting solar panels on your house. It's more important than a lot of other renewables. The first thing is about efficiency. Second thing is about renewables. Do efficiency right the first time. So all of those things can come together over time, and we're going to have some very interesting ways we work with other products, as well as renewables. Just stay tuned.
Majesty? Here you go.
Who've been to single-family homes, and I'm just wondering about multifamily or urban high-density structures. How difficult would it be? Do you have to look at the whole building and trying to get everyone in it to buy into this, or what are the variations?
So what we have, there's two different kinds. Sometimes people don't have a thermostat in their actual, like in an apartment building, they can't control the heat at all, right? All they can do is open the window or not. So, or they have window air conditioners. So that's not something we can really solve without them changing things out. But there are new apartment buildings and older apartment buildings where, actually in Toronto, in New York, they're making this as the default option. It comes when you buy the apartment. It's just there. And so we're seeing more builders putting these in, and each of these units are individually managed. And so it's kind of like just smaller homes. It's when you get into light office, where you have 20,000 square feet and you have 10 of them. That's a slightly different thing, and we work in those areas, and you have a slightly different interface. But it's really a challenge, because we want to go into hotels as well. It's really a challenge when you have hotel management or office management. You have to convince the landlord, the property manager, the tenant. So it's a big, big deal to try to get these larger systems to adopt Nest. So that's why we start with the consumer first. Because what I learned at Apple was you can do a lot. Every single person at an enterprise is a consumer. And if you reach the consumer, you can reach the enterprise, like why the iPhones were really able to take over, why the iPads were to take over. We think the same thing's going to happen in cruise ships, hotels, a light office, but it's going to be the consumerization into the enterprise through this. So.
Great. You have the sunglasses on your head?
I work on energy efficiency programs in Massachusetts and getting people's homes weatherized and insulated. And we have a program there called Mass Save. And that program actually, people get a home energy audit, weatherization, insulation, that sort of thing. And one of the things that comes with that is a programmable thermostat and changing out all the light bulbs to LED. Mm-hmm. What opportunity would it be to look at a program like that and maybe add, the Nest type of programmable thermostat as an option where we're coming in, we're bringing that, it's being paid for by the consumer on their electricity bill. And that, I think that would be a genius thing to do.
You're singing music to my ears right now. It's wonderful, because actually we're partnered with 6 different utilities now. In states, definitely in the Northeast, but we're also in Texas. And in Texas, you actually get a free Nest when you sign up for energy. In Massachusetts, is it Massachusetts? No, Rhode Island right now. $100 instant rebates for Nest, and it comes off. There's all kinds of things we're doing with utilities now, and we think that's the next wave. First wave was consumers. Second wave was installers and home builders. The third wave is really working into concert with the utilities, and we've done a lot already. We're running demand response programs now with our thermostats. We're running efficiency programs with them. There's a lot of things we can discuss. I'd love to get your card and talk more about it.
I'm sorry, guys, we're out of time, but thank you very much.
Thank you.